All right. Welcome back to the Coast to Coast Sports. I'm Michael Fiumefreddo, and this is the only show for the fans, by the fans. Today, we got a little bit of a special episode. Selection Sunday was just yesterday, and that means it's time to go dancing, boys and girls. We got March Madness coming up. Games start on Friday, actually Thursday with the first four, but the real tournament will start on Friday, Saturday, and we're in for a pretty good one. This year has been up and down. A lot of the big teams that we normally see, Duke, Kentucky, they're not even here. North Carolina is only an 8 seed. Kansas, a normal number 1 seed. They're all the way at 3 right now, and they've got some complications right now. So this is going to be a very interesting tournament, and I thought for today's episode, I'm going to fill out the official Coast to Coast Sports bracket. Now, not to say that I'm the best at this one, but I've had years where I've did great in the first round and kind of flamed out towards the end. I've had the reverse where, you don't win a lot of the first games, but you get all the final 4 right, and then you end up picking the champion and win the bracket poll. But a little disclaimer is I'm a little rusty at this right now. Obviously there was no tournament last year, so there wasn't anything to really go off of. But also 2 years ago, I had one of the worst brackets I've ever made. None of my final 4 teams even made it to the Elite 8. It was just an overall terrible bracket. We don't want to talk about that, and this year's kind of my redemption story. So I kind of thought about this a little bit before I went on. I started writing down some facts that I think really impact how a team does in March Madness, and I'll just read you off a couple of them. And it starts off with points per game. Which teams are going to be able to score the basketball, put up points? And I'll get into where those guys are, but that's normally something that I look for. More or less so defense. I think the more defensive teams, if they run into a team that's got a great offense, they'll struggle a little bit. Especially the lower teams that play in a mid-tier, low-tier conference. They're going to really struggle when they play a team that, like one of those teams that has a unique offensive style and can really score the basketball in many ways. Another thing I look for is how well can you shoot the 3? And also, free throws have been big. I know USC is not the greatest free throw shooting team, and that's come back to haunt us throughout the Pac-12, the Pac-12 tournament. And we'll get into a little bit of those teams that really excel in those fields as we get to them in the bracket. I also look for some trends, especially how well a teams have been playing. Are they hot? They just come off of a upset in their conference championship that maybe gave them a bid. I know Oregon State out of the Pac-12, they were an afterthought, but got the automatic qualifying bid for winning the Pac-12 championship. You also got to look at teams that maybe have went down from that because, Colorado, another team that won, or Oregon in the Pac-12, I've been watching all that because of USC. Those teams really didn't excel. They lost. They got upset. Even USC, they didn't play their greatest against Utah and then lost on a buzzer beater in the final game to Colorado. And then I look for some of the other trends that we've noticed before, like the 5-12 games. We normally see the 12 seeds win those for some reason. I look at the first 4 teams. There's the at-large bids. I think they're on the bottom here, but we'll get to them as we go through the bracket. But those teams, there's always been one that either wins 1 or 2 games, I know Syracuse went to the Elite 8 one year when they got there, or the Final 4 even. 2019 was actually the first year that none of the first 4 winners won their next game. So I think it has to do something with the momentum that they have going into it, or the fact that they've gotten a warm-up game pretty much. But that's a team that you always got to look out for. At least one of them is going to win. And the final thing is, when you're filling out a bracket, the first 1 or 2 rounds, they don't mean anything in terms of points. If you're trying to win your office pool, you're trying to impress your friends, you're trying to win some money, you're going to want to get these final 4, everything after the Elite 8, you want to get those correctly. And yeah, it's fun to pick all the upsets. You pick a team as a Cinderella story, take the risk there. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. But when it comes down to it, you're normally going to see a lot of the top 3 seeds in that Final 4. So let's go. Let's get into it. We're going to fill out this bracket. It's the Coast to Coast official bracket. I've entered it in the tournament challenge for ESPN, but let's see what we could fill out. So we'll start off with the top. Gonzaga in the West. I think that's an easy win for them. They're the best team in college basketball right now. They've been at number one since the first day of the season, and they finished at the top the last day of the season. Oklahoma versus Missouri. This was a tough one. I think I'll get back to it. Creighton, UC Santa Barbara. Like I said, these 5-12 games you always got to look out for. Santa Barbara is pretty hot right now. So I'm going to roll with Creighton here. I think Creighton, if you look at what they're averaging a game, 77 to 76 in a much better conference than the Big East. You can see all their stats. I think Creighton pulls this one off. Virginia, Ohio. Now, this is where I'm going to go with an upset here. Ohio's got the 8th best points per game in the NCAA in the tournament right now. I think they play a unique style of offense. They came off their conference championship win. I think they pull off an upset against Virginia, who's technically the reigning champions. Next, we got USC. This one was easy for me. What did you expect I was going to put? They got at least to win one of these games. Now, Kansas right now, they're having a little bit of trouble in terms of COVID right now. I think they only got 6 of their rotation guys available. Their center's missing. This could be big, but I still think they could pull off a victory against Eastern Washington. And Oregon, VCU, I think Oregon's hit a momentum spot. I'm going to take VCU here. Now, that might be my Pac-12 bias, but I'm rolling with VCU here. Iowa, I think, is going to win here. Let's go back to this Oklahoma-Missouri game. This one's given me trouble before. I've looked at it multiple times. I think this one's a toss-up. I have plenty of upsets, but I think I'm going to go with Missouri here. This is going to be a toss-up game. I don't think any of them get past Gonzaga. And let's just stick with the West. We'll finish off this region before we get to the Pac-12. So, yeah, like I said, Gonzaga, I think they're going to easily make it to this point. Creighton versus Ohio. I'm probably going to go Ohio here. I think the same thing. I feel like there's going to be that one team that comes out of nowhere and has to face off against one of these juggernauts, and I think it's going to be Ohio. USC, Kansas. This is where, if the COVID problems are real, I think USC can get the victory here against Kansas. You know, I just mentioned their center's out for Kansas, and USC's got the best center in college basketball in Evan Mobley. You could argue that with me all you want, but he's going to be a top 3 pick in the NBA draft. I think he'll get the job done. VCU, I think Iowa wins this one. Now we got Gonzaga again. I think they're just going to keep on rolling. And then USC's run ends here. I think Iowa gets it done. Now we get to this Elite 8 matchup, Gonzaga versus Iowa. And the thing I've noticed with Gonzaga every single year in the tournament is their level of competition does not match up. And when you face a team like Iowa, who's played in the Big 12, they have one of the best players in college basketball right now with Luka Garza. I think you can see the more experience of Iowa playing against these better teams than Gonzaga's playing against the West Coast Conference. So Iowa's going to be my Final Four team out of the Western region. Let's move down to the East region. Michigan, same thing. With these 1 seeds, I'm just gonna fill up all these. We don't have to talk about them any more than we do. It's only happened once. It's not gonna happen again unless you get like an absolute juggernaut team coming out of a terrible conference playing against a team that maybe shouldn't be there. I don't know, but you're not gonna see a 1 seed lose anytime soon. LSU versus St. Bonaventure. St. Bonaventure's got a very good offense. You can see 70 points a game. So does LSU, though, at 82. I think this is another toss-up from what I've been researching. I think St. Bonaventure shoots the ball very well. And that's where it all comes down to in the tournament. So I'm going to roll with the Bonnies here. Colorado, Georgetown. Again, this is not Pac-12 bias, but Georgetown just won the Big East. And seeing that they're a 12 seed, that kind of means that they were an afterthought to even make the tournament. But now they got the momentum down, so I'm going to go with Georgetown here. Now, Florida State versus UNC Greensboro. I'll take Florida State here. They look like a great team right now. Now, BYU, this is where I think the first 4 team wins. I think Michigan State's going to win that game over UCLA, but I think this is the game where that one team gets in. And if it's Wichita State or Drake, don't talk to me for a week, I guess, or until the tournament's over. So I'm going to have to pick this one. Texas, I'll take them over Abilene Christian. UConn, Maryland. UConn's apparently on a roll as well. I'm going to have to go with UConn. And then Alabama, Iona. If we're talking about the most absurd upset of the tournament that's believable, I think it's Rick Pitino's Iona team. But I'm going to have to go with Alabama here. Back up to the top. Michigan, I think, continues it here. Georgetown, Florida State, I'll get back to. Texas, I could see. And then UConn, Alabama is going to be a very good game. You look at them, they're very similar in BPI rankings. Alabama is a team that can keep it close or win in the clutch. But, I can't keep picking all these 1 and 2 seeds, so I'm going to go with UConn. Georgetown, Florida State. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Georgetown's rolling right now. Florida State had a bad loss in the ACC Conference Championship. I'm going to go with Georgetown here. Now, Michigan, I think they're on a hot streak as well. They're going to get into the Elite Eight. And this is where I see UConn continuing. But when it comes down to it, Michigan is going to make it to the Final Four, face off against Iowa. Back up to the top of the bracket, Baylor we already put in. UNC, Wisconsin. North Carolina somehow gets it done every year, so I'm going to stick with them. Now, this is a game I really wanted to talk about. Villanova versus Winthrop. Villanova's missing Colin Gillespie, their best player, their point guard. Winthrop is a top 10 points per game in the tournament. Winthrop plays a very unique style of offense, and it's a 5-12 matchup, so Winthrop beats Villanova, upsets Danny, Brandon, all my Villanova buddies out there. But the way they say it, it's a lost season. They lost Gillespie. It was over from the start. They didn't expect to go far anyway. I'll take Purdue here. Utah State, Texas Tech is another game that apparently can go either way. Utah State's a very good team. They got in, but I'm going to have to stick with Texas Tech. Mac McClung's been playing phenomenal. They faced off against some of the best competition in the Big 12. I think they're going to make a run here, and we'll see that. Now, Colgate's another team they right behind Gonzaga. They're the number 2 points per game in the NCAA. They also have the second best 3-point percentage in the NCAA. As a 14 seed facing off against Arkansas, though, I'm going to have to pick them. I think they play a unique style of offense, just like Winthrop, just like Ohio. They're going to give a team like Arkansas some trouble and maybe even pull off the upset there. Florida, Virginia Tech. I'm going to go with Virginia Tech. And Ohio State versus Oral Roberts. Oral Roberts as a 15 seed, they do shoot the best free throw percentage in college basketball right now. So I'm going to have to go with Ohio State. Now we got, we're going to stick with this region again. I forgot. Baylor, I'm taking. Winthrop, Purdue. I'm going to roll with Winthrop. And Texas Tech, I think, ends Colgate's run here. They make it over here. Virginia Tech, Ohio State. I'm going to go with Ohio State. Baylor, I think, disclaimer, I think they're going pretty far. So that might be a spoiler alert, but I think they're going pretty far. I think they are the best team over Gonzaga just because of who they played. We were supposed to get that matchup. I don't think we will because I don't think Gonzaga makes it that far, but that was going to be a fun matchup, the 2 best teams in college basketball. But I see Baylor making it pretty far. Texas Tech, Ohio State. I got to think about this one, but when it comes down to BPI, I mean, look at the numbers here, but Texas Tech, Ohio State right next to each other, both playing great conferences. I think this is going to come down to a toss-up game, and I think Texas Tech wins it. And then for Baylor, Texas Tech, Baylor. So Illinois now, in the Midwest. I think Illinois is a phenomenal team. And that's weird to say because when was the last time Illinois was really good at basketball? But they got a great roster right now. I think they have a legitimate shot at a title here. So I'm going to stick with them over Drexel. Loyola Chicago's back, but I think Georgia Tech just won the ACC. They're going to make a run. Tennessee, Oregon State. How many 5-12s do I have? I got one there, two there. Do I see a third happening? This is tough. This is where the Pac-12 bias comes in. But I'll go with Tennessee here. Oklahoma State, Cade Cunningham. We'll talk about him as we get a little further. Cuse, I'm still a fan of Cuse, coming from New York, so I'll pick them. You see, that's the other disclaimer. There's nothing that goes into this other than, like, I haven't watched all 68 of these teams. I'd be crazy to do so. But when it comes down to it, I'm sure you can get someone that hasn't watched the game and fill out a bracket, give them like two rankings, and they'll be like, oh, this team's better than this team. This team's better than this team. And that's how you win. When it comes down to the end, the best teams are always going to be there. And then that's when you really get the points. That's when you really get a chance to win the bracket poll. You pick a fun couple upsets in the first couple rounds, and then maybe you got that one sleeper team that you believe in and they actually outperform. Maybe you're a fan of USC. You think they upset Kansas. They do. Get you a few points there, but then you got to be a little realistic. So I'm just going to pick Syracuse here. Nothing more than that. West Virginia, I think they're a legitimate team in this year. I think they played a few good teams. They're right where they should be at 500 or around 500 in terms of who they played. The Big 12 was stacked this year, so nothing really other than they just played good teams all year. And they've won some of those games, they've lost some of those games. Clemson versus Rutgers. I'll stick with the New York, New Jersey bias. Pick Rutgers here. It's good for them to get some morale. I got a couple friends that go to Rutgers, so I'll root for them here. Houston, I'll pick them over Cleveland State. Now we got back to the top. Illinois, Texas, Tennessee, Oklahoma State. This should be a fun game. But Cade Cunningham, he is a phenomenal player, averaging about 20 points a game in his college career. She'll be the number one overall pick between him or Mobley, but I think this is a Steph Curry type of story where the one guy on the team that no one expects comes out, wins a few games for his team, puts the team on his back. And Steph Curry averaged 32 points in his tournament run. So if anyone else can do that, I can see Cade Cunningham being that guy. West Virginia, this is where I start to get a little serious, though. As much as I like Cuse, I'll take West Virginia. I think they got a better shot. And then same with Houston over Rutgers. So this is the one so far that I've had 1 through 4 make it to the Sweet 16. This is where I think Cade Cunningham continues his run. They defeat Illinois, pull off the upset. And then you come down here, West Virginia or Houston. I'm going to go West Virginia and set up this Big 12 battle. If you look down here somewhere, it'll come up somewhere. Where do they play Oklahoma State? West Virginia's 1-1, lost 2. Yeah, there you can see they've got both of those up there. This is a tough one. I'm a little stumped because I've watched a couple of those games and both teams looked fantastic. I think West Virginia is a much better team than Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's just got that one player. But when it really comes down to it, you just pick the better team. So West Virginia makes it to the Final Four. Now we got Iowa versus Michigan, Baylor versus West Virginia. We got a 2 seed, a 1 seed, a 1 seed, and a 3 seed. Like I said, you could maybe make an argument for a 6 seed or 5 seed to get in there, but when it comes down to it, I think we got this. So Iowa, Michigan, I'm going to go with Luka Garza and Iowa. I think they're a good team. I think so is Michigan, but I'm rocking with Iowa here. And then Baylor, I said they were going to go pretty far. And when it comes down to it, I think Baylor wins. Baylor, I hadn't mentioned this before just because I thought they were going to fly through this bracket. I didn't think much to talk about them. But although they lost in the Big 12 tournament, they have the third best points per game and the best 3-point shooting percentage in college basketball. So Baylor is going to be the national champion. You can mark me down for that one. Score, I'll put 63-60. Keep it a little bit low scoring. It's normally not that high scoring in the championship game just because there's a lot of pressure. The nerves kick into these college kids. So Baylor beats Iowa national championship 63-60. I'm going to submit my picks, and that'll do it. There you go. Congrats. Your picks have been saved. I picked Baylor to cut down the nets in Indianapolis. But that's going to do it here for today's show of Coast to Coast Sports. I'm Michael Fiumefreddo. You're watching the only show for the fans, by the fans. We'll keep you with some updates throughout the tournament. Check out our Instagram page for more news. That's at C2C Sports MF. Check it out. We'll be posting all throughout the tournament. We got a lot of NFL news coming out. Free agency opened up today as well. So that should be fun to watch. But thanks for tuning in. We'll see you later this week.